Top 3 places you can't go and people who went anyway. What's good? How your day going? Morning, evening, night, whenever you're watching this. What up, David Rodriguez? Because it was funny because I wanted to watch one of these again anyway, but I saw you kept letting me know, like, yo, watch part 8. So I was like, you know what? Might as well watch part 8, though. I'm not gonna lie. Looking at this thumbnail, watching these ones, though, real quick, we're gonna start the video. Watching these ones, though, it's a little bit on a breath of, like, I don't know why I did it. It's a little bit on the breath of fresh air side, a little bit, because you get so many true crime ones that you feel bad for. Sometimes, a good amount of times, not all the time. Sometimes in these places you can't go videos, you get the ones where it's like I want to feel bad, but you was just being hard-headed. So it's like, oh my God, dog. But it's still someone's life, so still, it's never always, oh, that's hella good. I was basically saying it's a step away from, like, the true crime of, like, watching, like, damn, this was effed up. Either way it go, though. Yo, you want to check out the Richard video? Link will be in the description below, but let's go.
Today's stories are more anxiety-inducing than normal, so viewer discretion is advised. But before we get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you come to the right channel, because that's all we do, and we upload 3, 4, even 5 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please offer to give the like button a ride home, and as soon as they get in the car, immediately start chain-smoking cigarettes with the windows up and blare techno music at full blast, and then drop them off 40 miles. I can't even do it. Blare techno music at full blast and then drop them off 40 miles away from their home. Also, please subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. All right, let's get into today's stories.
Like the movie?
On April 28, 2000, a 24-year-old named Yuri Lipsky was standing in front of a cafe in Dahab, Egypt, overlooking the Red Sea. He had traveled all the way to the Sinai Peninsula from Moscow in order to film himself swimming through the Arch, but now it was looking like that probably wasn't going to happen. The Arch is an 85-foot-long underwater tunnel that connects a massive sinkhole right on Dahab's shoreline called the Blue Hole to the Red Sea. To get to the Arch, you need to enter the Blue Hole directly and descend straight down 181 feet, where you'll reach the top of the tunnel on the northeast side. But there's a catch. If on your descent you happen to miss the ceiling of this arch, which apparently it's pretty easy to do, you run the risk of going too deep. Now, going too deep does not mean you're going to miss the tunnel altogether. The arch actually...
This one kind of sounds familiar. Hold up.
It starts at 181 feet, but then goes all the way down to 393 feet. So it's a huge, huge opening. The risk of going too deep has to do with how your body responds to the type of gas you're breathing. For those who are unfamiliar with diving, generally speaking, you have 2 types of dives. There's recreational diving, where you breathe the same air that you breathe on the surface. They literally jam air directly into scuba bottles. You breathe that, and you go down to 130 feet. That's the recommended bottom depth that you would go down breathing regular air.
So
and then there is technical
regular
diving, where you breathe a special mixture of gases. Typically, it's going to be a mixture of helium, nitrogen, and oxygen that allow you to go below 130 feet. This type of diving is exponentially more dangerous and requires all sorts of additional training. Because the minimum depth you would need to go to in order to access the arch is 181 feet, that puts you well in the technical diving range, which means you should be diving mixed gas and have special training and equipment. But year after year, people try to dive down to the arch and go through it on regular air. And year after year, people die doing it. When your body...
and that's the part I don't get. I don't know. I would think you know these rules. If you're going to do this, I would think so. But maybe it's just me, but why is that part so hard to understand? If they're like, yo, Charlie, we got Reggie, but at 130 a cap. Where you trying to go is to 180. So to do that, you need to buy exotic. I'm going to understand, like, okay, so I can't do it with Reggie then. So I need to buy exotic. If not, I can die. So why would you still try it? I'm sorry, it pisses me. Oh my gosh, dude. I saw this one quote the other day. Forget it.
Through it on regular air, and year after year, people die doing it. When your body absorbs too much nitrogen, you can get something called nitrogen narcosis, which is a lot like being drunk. And in extreme cases, divers who get this have been known to remove their mouthpiece and inhale water, believing they are actually on the surface. Below 130 feet, your body absorbs nitrogen.
Oh, because they think they feel. Oh my gosh. You put that motherfucker.
Divers who get this have been known to remove their mouthpiece and inhale water, believing they are actually on the surface. Below 130 feet, your body absorbs nitrogen much faster, and regular air is a whopping 78% nitrogen. So the risk of getting nitrogen narcosis is exponentially higher if you're breathing regular air below 130 feet. Also, oxygen can become toxic the deeper you go in the water column. It can lead to blackouts and convulsions that if you don't have someone there to literally physically move you up in the water column, you won't recover from it and you'll die. Regular air contains 21% oxygen, which is a lot of oxygen. So if you're diving regular air below 130 feet, you are at an increased risk of developing O2 toxicity. Now, to be clear, it is possible on regular air to dive down to 181 feet and make it through the arch and come out the other side and be just fine. But you're realistically at 181 feet pushing the absolute boundary of what you can get away with on regular air. Below 200 feet, you're probably dead. So if you're attempting to swim through the arch on regular air, you need to be paying very close attention to your depth as you descend so that you don't miss the arch and accidentally drift down below 181 feet to the very deadly 200 feet and beyond. So earlier in the day, Yuri had gone down to the edge of the blue hole and he had found one of the diving instructors that taught inside the blue hole. His name was Tarek Omar, and he asked him if he'd be willing to take him down to the arch to help him film himself going through the arch. And Tarek said, yes, but I need to train you for 2 weeks before you're going to be considered qualified to do that. And you need a special setup with a special gas mixture to do this dive. And Yuri was like, well, I'm leaving in 2 days to head back to Moscow, so I need to do this dive now. Is there any way you can do it today?
Please say no, dog. Please say no.
Even? And Tarek was like,
I ain't going.
No, that's not how this works. And Tarek understood this more than anybody else, because in addition to teaching diving at the blue hole, Tarek's job was to dive down to the bottom and retrieve the dead bodies of inexperienced or over.
So meaning he know, like, wow, dude, like, I don't know if we saw this one on a short or something, but this one is sounding familiar. We did also watch we watched one where he was kind of explaining. It was a sign that was letting people know, like, yo, you can't go past this point. It's a possibility of, you know what, I don't want to say the word YouTube. That could have been a different story or whatever, but I'm thinking, was it the same one, whatever? Either way it go, though, like, I really don't get what's so hard about following the rules, especially when you know your life is on the line. I do not get it. And then you legit just ask. It feels so selfish. It feels selfish to me for you to ask this guy, yo, can we still do it? Like, no. Why would I put my life on the line? And I know my job is part of my job is recovering dead bodies from down there.
Tarek was like, no, that's not how this works. And Tarek understood this more than anybody else, because in addition to teaching diving at the blue hole, Tarek's job was to dive down to the bottom and retrieve the dead bodies of inexperienced or overconfident divers that attempted the archway and didn't make it. Although there is not an official body count of how many people have perished inside of the blue hole, locals believe it's as high as 200 people just in the last decade. After Tarek was unwilling to take him without properly training him and outfitting him with the right equipment, Yuri thanked him and went on to a couple different other diving instructors with the same request. Will you take...
Last stop, I'm sorry. It's not even like he's saying... All right, not them. People in general. It's not even like they're saying you can't do it. It's just like, hey, if you want to do it, this is how. Like, shit.
Yuri thanked him and went on to a couple different other diving instructors with the same request. Will you take me in the next couple of days? And they all said, no, we need to train you and you need special equipment. And so finally, after no one was willing to do this, Yuri just left. Later that day, owners of cafes that overlooked the blue hole remember seeing a young man who was by himself walk to the edge of the blue hole. He puts on all of his scuba gear, he puts on a helmet and then straps a big camera to the top and ratchets it down. And then after he's got all his stuff on, he jumps into the blue hole and he disappears. That man was Yuri. A few days later, Yuri's family back home in Moscow did not see him get off the flight he was supposed to be on, and they reported him missing. Tarek Omar was contacted to go down into the blue hole and see if Yuri was down there. Tarek hopped in the blue hole, he went to the bottom, and sure enough, lying face down at the bottom was Yuri. When they brought Yuri to the surface, they realized his camera had been running the whole time, and he had actually filmed his final moment.
Shit.
Yuri's final video exists online, so you can watch it for yourself, but here is a description of what happens. After situating his camera on his head just the way he wanted it, he hit record, and then he jumped into the water. It was determined later on that Yuri was breathing regular air out of his tanks. The camera submerges under the water, and then Yuri begins to sink very quickly into the blue hole. But his breathing seems normal, and he's not thrashing around, so it seems like it's a controlled descent. But at some point, you hear Yuri trying to activate his buoyancy compensator. Basically, it's this life jacket, to describe it simply, that sits on your gear that you have a demand valve where you can inflate and deflate the air into it to neutralize your buoyancy. Or in an emergency situation, you can fully inflate it and stop yourself from sinking. In fact, you'll rise to the surface. But he's trying to activate his buoyancy compensator to slow down his descent, and the air is escaping his compensator. There's a leak, and he can't slow down his descent. Now, Yuri was wearing a weight belt, which is very common in diving. In fact, I don't really know of all that many dives that you wouldn't use a weight belt. And any diver knows that there is a quick release function on your weight belt. Specifically, if you're in an uncontrolled descent or if you're in an emergency situation and need to get to the surface.
And let me guess, he don't know that because he didn't go through training. Let me just guess.
Belt. Specifically, if you're in an uncontrolled descent or if you're in an emergency situation and need to get to the surface, you can jettison your weight belt and go to the surface. But Yuri was panicking and he was fixated on his buoyancy compensator that he was desperately trying to activate, and it was failing, and so he's not going for his weight belt. And then he rockets past the entrance to the arch, so he goes below 181 feet, he goes below 200 feet, and he goes all the way to the bottom where he hits the bottom at 392 feet. And then he begins to slide because the bottom of the blue hole was actually at an angle, and that archway went all the way to the bottom of the hole. And if you slipped out of the blue hole, it was a sheer drop off for thousands of feet. And you see on camera Yuri.
How the hell's bro getting these? That is this man's job. Well, what the fudge? I used to complain about going into tech support. I used to hate fixing y'all internet. Y'all used to call it internet. And I thought that was the worst job ever. Boy, what the hell? Boy, I'm grateful, dog. I'm so grateful, dog. It's crazy. Now I 100% understand. Now I 100% understand why. When they told you no, they meant that. Nobody was like, all right, we'll do. Nobody. Now I see why, man. Rest in peace, Yuri. Come on, man.
392 feet, and then he begins to slide because the bottom of the blue hole was actually at an angle, and that archway went all the way to the bottom of the hole. And if you slipped out of the blue hole, it was a sheer drop off for thousands of feet. And you see on camera, Yuri rolls over and he's desperately clawing into the mud to stop himself from sliding out of the blue hole to definite death. And he's trying to get himself to stop, and finally he anchors himself in the dirt. And it's calm for a second, and he's kind of looking around. It's very clear he's confused, and then it goes still. And it's believed at this point he either removed his mouthpiece because of nitrogen narcosis, he pulled it out and inhaled water, or he was dealing with O2 toxicity and he blacked out and the mouthpiece came out. But either way, he drowned.
I'm sorry to stop again, but man, I do want to say rest in peace to Yuri, though. I do feel like it was one of the moves, see, where it's like so many signs were given to you, but it's still rest in peace to you, man. Swiss cheese.
Situated an hour's drive from Johannesburg in South Africa lies Sterkfontein Cave. The cave is famous for the fossils that have been found there, and also for its underground lake, whose walls look like Swiss cheese. There's all these tunnels that spider all over the place. Many of them are unexplored, and no one knows how deep the cave actually goes. In 1984, cave diver Peter Verhussel, along with two of his friends, decided they wanted to explore these passageways in the lake, and specifically they wanted to check out a chamber called Milner Hall, which was fairly far down in the lake. There was a guideline that was anchored from the surface of the lake all the way down into the different sections that had been explored, and this was so cave divers could hold on to it and make their way through without getting lost. Not that I've ever been cave diving, but from what I've read, there is one golden rule. You never let go of the guideline. And if you do, it better be extremely well planned, and you should do it with other divers present. Peter was a notorious risk taker, and was the least experienced cave diver of the three. When they entered the lake, they were all holding the guideline, and Peter was the third back. And so they began descending down into the lake, and at some point, Peter's curiosity got the better of him, and he left the line to go look at the wall where there was, something he wanted to look at. And luckily, the other two divers noticed it. They saw him, and they swam over and got.
Not me. I'll be like, hey, dog, come back. If not, I'm about to keep going. I'm not about to respond. If you know the rules and you don't get mad, most least experienced at this, I'm not doing it. Sorry. I don't know how talking works down there, but regardless, I'll look at you. You'll look at me. If you don't, you keep going your way you going. Fuck it. I don't know what bro doing, dog. I'm out of there. Stop playing with me.
And luckily, the other two divers noticed it. They saw him, and they swam over and got him and brought him back to the guideline. And even though you can't communicate underwater, I'm sure they looked at him like, come on, don't do that. And they kept going down, and then once again, Peter's curiosity gets the better of him.
See?
He leaves the guideline and goes over and checks something else out. The other two divers notice again, they turn around, they grab him, and they pull him back. And now they're looking at him like, you can't do this, no more. And so Peter's body language indicated that he got it, and he was back on the guideline. He's not going to do it again. And they continue down, and they're getting closer to Milner Hall when the first two turn around to check on Peter, and he's gone. And now previously, when they found him those other two times when he left the guideline, he was just over right against the wall, and he was easy to spot. But this time he wasn't. They're looking around with their lights, and he's nowhere to be found. And they're not prepared to go leave into one of these tunnels to go looking for him because there was so many. It was like Swiss cheese down there with all these different tunnels he could have gone into, and they didn't know which one he went in. And so after kind of waiting and looking around for a couple of minutes, thinking maybe he'll come back, they were running out of air, and they had to go to the surface. So the two men surface, they call the police, they explain what happened. Rescue divers are sent to the cave to go looking for Peter, but by the time they even got there, it had been several hours. It takes a while to mount this type of search, and Peter only had one tank of air. And so if he hasn't surfaced by now, the thought is he's drowned at this point. But the rescue divers go into the lake, they head down to the area where Peter was last seen, and they look around and they can't find him, and they surface pretty quickly. And they say, look, we're just not prepared to look through all these different tunnels he could have gone in just to find his body. Because at this point, there's no way he's alive. He's been down here for hours.
I got a feeling he's alive, huh?
Air, and one of the rescue divers, is going to get trapped in one of these tunnels, and we don't want to lose anyone, so we're terminating the search. Peter's friends are devastated, and they say, hey, can you let us go down and look for Peter's body for his family? And the police said, no, we're banning diving in this cave. 6 weeks after Peter went missing inside of this lake, a group of dry cavers were doing some work in a chamber that was right next to this underground lake. And they were chiseling this wall when all of a sudden the wall kind of collapsed, revealing another chamber on the other side of this wall. They took their flashlight out and they looked inside, and it looked like a tunnel that kind of weaved around the corner. And they shined their light on the ground, and it looked like there were some muddy or sandy footprints that were left, as if someone had been walking right there. The cavers were initially terrified, the idea that there's anything living behind the walls inside the cave. But they stepped over and they walked around the corner, and it revealed this huge air pocket that clearly was connected to the underground lake, because there was water right in the middle of this air pocket, and there was no other way in besides, this wall that's collapsed. And in the middle of the water, there was this island. It was like this sandy, muddy, rocky island right in the middle of this air pocket. And laying on the island was Peter. In a stroke of luck, after Peter went missing from his dive, he had discovered this air pocket, and he had surfaced and climbed onto this island.
Oh, he'd been living there.
He didn't have enough air in his air tank to get to the surface again, and so he figured, okay, I'll just sit on this island. There seems to be enough air in here for me. I'll wait until my dive buddies invariably go get help and come down here and rescue me. He sat inside of that air pocket for 3 weeks, waiting for a rescue that never arrived. Before he ultimately died of starvation, he wrote a message in the sand to his mother and to his wife, telling them that he loved them. To this day, diving is still prohibited inside of Sturtfontein Cave.
Dang, I just knew they were about to say he was chilling, because when they said he was laying there, I'm thinking like he was legit laying there, like bored as shit. Like, if not me, then who? And that one, I get it. His friend, man, he got some good friends. And don't get me wrong, I'm an amazing friend of my friends. But I'm sorry. It just sounds too much like your mentality was like kind of a kid. It's like you're not listening. You're not understanding. Not only are you putting yourself in danger, but you're putting us at danger as well. Stop doing this. And then you keep doing it, and it's like, what the fuck, man? I get it. You were curious. I get it. But you're on the journey. Like, look, I understand though. When people are adventurous like this, they are the ones who are going to discover ish. They are. And they are risking their lives to do it every time. I get it. But at the same time, it's like, oh my God, I ain't got no damn words left, man. It's like I understand it, and I understand it's going to keep happening. I get it, but at the same time, it's like, I don't want to say, but I want to say it is something that's needed for the world, for the planet, I should say. But at the same time, it's like trying to do it the right way may work sometime. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes going against the grain is how we get a lot of shit we got. I'm not gonna lie. So it's like I'm trying to say I don't want you to do it, but at the same time, it's like in my mind, I know this shit has to be done sometime. Not saying what he done in particular has to be done. I'm saying like risky shit where things are discovered in this world. On this planet. Hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say. Gosh, dog.
Starvation, he wrote a message in the sand to his mother and to his wife, telling them that he loved them. To this day, diving is still prohibited inside the Sterkfontein cave.
Not me, then who?
A little after 1:30 in the morning on June 17th, 2017, 34 U.S. Navy sailors were asleep inside of berthing compartment number 2 on the USS Fitzgerald. Their berthing compartment was below the waterline, meaning where they were sleeping was underwater. They were sailing along through the South China Sea when all of a sudden there is this explosion in the berthing compartment and a rush of cold air. The explosion was a 30,000-ton container ship crashing into them, gouging an opening in their wall bigger than a semi-truck. Before any of the 34 sailors could make sense of what was happening, tens of thousands of gallons of seawater are pouring into their compartment. The sailors were sleeping in what they called coffin lockers, which were these bunk beds where the bunks were stacked 3 high and the lowest bunk was practically on the ground. And so as soon as the water came pouring into the room, everybody who was sleeping on a lower bunk was immediately completely submerged in water. And all the furniture inside of the space was lifted up by the rush of water, and a few unlucky sailors who were in those bottom bunks were trapped by furniture that landed right in front of their bunk. The sailors immediately jumped into action, leaping out of their bunks, pulling people out of those lower bunks. Everybody's trying to help each other out to get to the exit, which was a ladder that led up to a hatch in the ceiling. The sailors inside of this space were very close with each other. Pretty much 24 hours a day, they were always within a few feet of each other. And so that explains why, as the water was rising and rising, getting up to their necks, they formed an orderly line as they all made their way up this ladder through this hatch. As they waited in line to get out of the space, the water was getting so high that they were tilting their heads to barely be able to breathe the space that was left inside of the room. And when the water is really cold, you involuntarily open your mouth. And so water was pouring into their mouths, making it very hard to breathe.
I didn't know that.
As each man climbed the ladder and went through the hatch to relative safety, they would turn around and help the next
pull up,
man
yup, pull up.
And they remembered hearing this hissing sound, which was the sound of all the air being forced out of the compartment through this hatch as it filled with seawater. And then finally, the survivors that had made it out of the hatch were able to pull the last few guys that were in line to go up the ladder. They pulled them out, and then they realized they're short 8 sailors. But they're faced with this terrible decision because they need to shut the hatch and seal it. It's a procedure inside of a sinking ship to keep it from sinking. If they don't shut this compartment, they run the risk of killing more people on board the ship. And so they decide they're going to wait for a couple of extra seconds.
Mr. Ballen, come on, man. Give me one of them stories, dog. You know which one I'm looking for. A success story, dog. My anxiety is through the roof right now, man.
Run the risk of killing more people on board the ship. And so they decide they're going to wait for a couple of extra seconds and they begin yelling, "Come to the sound of my voice," in hopes that anybody that's still down there could hear them through the water and would swim to them. And then before they shut it, they poked their head down and looked, and they saw a glimmer of what looked like a man swimming away from the ladder. And they're thinking, why are they swimming away? Don't they know they don't come here? And they're yelling to this person, come back, swim to our voice. And then moments later, this burly sailor from Arizona named John Meade came out of the darkness and clambered up the ladder, and they pull him out, and he's coughing and he's gagging, and he said, "Gary Ream saved me. I was behind a locker. He pulled me out." And it dawned on the 2 sailors that saw that man swimming away from the ladder farther into the compartment that they had tried to stop, that they had tried to get back to them.
Thank you,
That
Gary.
wasn't John Meade. That was Gary Ream. He was intentionally swimming back to save these guys. But now, in a cruel twist of fate,
I thought he missed it. No, he was trying to get more. Oh man, he was trying to get more of his bros, dog. My bad, I had to go let my girl in, man. Dude, this is crazy. I thought when it was like he went past it, I thought he didn't know neither. I thought he was going past it, like he missed it. But nah, he was trying to say the rest of, man, he was trying to say the rest of his team, man, his bros. Damn. So that's why when he came up, when he was like, he saved me, yup, makes sense. He knew he kept going, but I was thinking like, I wish he would have came up, got Aaron came back down, but they probably wouldn't have let him go back down with it. It's like, man, thank you for what you're trying to do, but we couldn't let you, they wouldn't let him go back down, I bet. Man. Rest in peace, Gary. This is crazy, man.
Stop that they had tried to get back to them. That wasn't John Meade. That was Gary Ream. He was intentionally swimming back to save these guys. But now, in a cruel twist of fate, they had to seal the hatch, with Gary and 6 others still inside. At 37 years old, Gary Ream was a veteran of the ship. Damn. He referred to the other sailors as his kids, and when they were on land, he would invite them over to his house for holiday meals. He was approaching 20 years of service, and he was planning to retire soon and move back to Virginia with his family and become a fireman. Gary was asleep inside of berthing compartment number 2 when the crash happened, and instead of going up the ladder to safety, which he could have done, he was near the
I was about to say, because if he was number 2, wouldn't that mean, I take it the ladder is at number 1? I don't know, but...
The crash happened, and instead of going up the ladder to safety, which he could have done, he was near the ladder, he instead decided to make multiple trips into the far back section of the compartment, which is where the most people were trapped by furniture, either in their bunks or in the bathroom stalls. And he went back over and over and over again, knowing full well that once this water reaches the ceiling, they are going to seal the hatch. He's been in the Navy almost 20 years. He knows the procedure. But Gary loved his kids, and he was prepared to die for them. And on this day, he did. 19 of the 27 survivors.
I mean, not celebrating your death, bro. Man. Look, just give me some respect, buddy. Man, this is crazy. I tell you, y'all know these stories always give me. Because I told you, look, I might be skinny, but I ain't weak. But one thing I can't do is, I couldn't see me serving. Boy, that shit, look, man, that shit, I ain't gonna lie, that shit looks scary to me. But like, even I'll be talking to my pops, man, he won't, I told you, we get into the story every time. He just won't tell me no damn stories. I'd be asking him stuff. Luckily, I get a lot of stories from Mr. Ballen, though. But I be asking him stuff. But I told you, we had to talk before. We ain't gonna talk long. Dog won't tell me nothing. He'll beat around the bush. Ah, shit. He'll tell me like little stories where it's like he moments. But I'm like, nah. I want to hear it. I want to hear the deep ish. This man. Ah, shit.
He was prepared to die for them. And on this day, he did. 19 of the 27 surviving sailors credit Gary for saving their life. So that's going to do it, guys. If you found the secret in today's episode, let us know in the comments what it is and where you found it. So give us the timestamp. And if you're the first to do that, we'll pin you at the top of the comment section. If you enjoyed today's video and you haven't done this already...
Boy, I'm sorry. That's a different lifestyle. And I ain't even talking about that. I'm just thinking like... To be like, if I was like, man, I'm here because, Gary saved me. Man, like you legit have to live life appreciating life. If you know, like, if that from that point on your life consists, basically my life is like, yo, I'm here and I know I'm here because someone, shout out Gary, I'm just speaking in general right now. No, that's why I said someone. Because someone risked their life to save my life. And it sounded like this person had a family too. Damn. Well, he called them his kids, right? He had a girl though, still family, whatever. Now that one, and that's why. And at the beginning, like I said, and this one of the ones I wouldn't. It didn't feel like. Why were you being hard-headed? Why are you doing this? And you could fight it and say, well, he was being hard-headed because he knew procedure. He was probably supposed to do what he had to do, come up, whatever. But I'm still not going to put him in that category of like, yo, you're being hard-headed or this was just stupid. Why would you do that? I'm not going to do it. You can say what you want to say. It doesn't matter. Hey, but look, I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here and chill and enjoy my night. I know they say rules are made to be broken. And I know sometimes you can apply certain ish sometime and it really works, but not all the time. Don't let some of these quotes cost you your damn life. Some of these damn, cause some stuff I be reading, I'm like, this just sounds so stupid. Look, enjoy your day, morning, night, evening, and I'm out.